Hi, it's Dr. Hood, busy surgeon here to help busy people get lean and get fit. I want to do a short video about food marketing labels, quite an important topic when you're making choices regarding what you eat, if you're wanting to get lean and get fit. And as you know, 80% of your success is dependent on your diet. And 80 to 85% of your success is dependent on your diet, what you eat most of the time, that's going to correct your metabolism, that's going to help your body burn fat rather than store fat, more so than exercise, although exercise is an important component of you getting lean and getting fit. And food labeling, marketing label, very important thing to understand, because the food industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's there to sell you food, and marketing is part of that. And the marketing, similar to the marketing that you find on, other things, other non-food things like phones, cars, it's there to reassure you that it's the best quality. So, for example, when it comes to your phone, it's going to tell you that it's the highest speed, user-friendly, the best quality camera. All these kind of things are there to encourage you to buy it and feel reassured about your purchase. Same thing when it comes to food. Food marketing is there to convince you that this is the best quality food and that it is best for your health as well. And you have to be wary, because often the labels are misleading. And let's just go through some examples to understand why that is. And as a basic approach to eating food, if you eat good quality protein, animal protein is best for most of your meals, and you combine that with non-starchy vegetables, you lower your carbohydrates, you have healthy fats, that's how you're going to correct your metabolism and get lean. And anything that deviates, that causes you to deviate from that, is a misleading label. And there are different types of labels. There are ones that tell you that things are absent from the food and that potentially is good for you. There are labels that tell you there are additions to the food that potentially could be good for you. And then there are labels that tell you about the quality of the food. And let's get straight into the examples. The most important one is low fat. Low fat is a misleading label, and really anything that is labeled as low fat or 0% fat, you should avoid that. It's usually highly processed. And it comes from this idea that fat is a bad nutrient and that we should minimize it in our diet. And it comes from this idea that fat is related to heart disease and obesity and cancer, when the evidence is not there. The link between natural fats and heart disease and obesity, there is no evidence for it. It's beyond the scope of this video, but low fat is not a positive label. You should be aware of it. Often it is misleading. For example, a yogurt that's 0% fat is processed, often has added sugars or added processed oils to replace that. And then you have the other opposite extreme, foods that are nutrient poor, like processed crisp breads or rice cakes, are marketed as low in fat, and they're nutrient poor, they're high in carbohydrates, so avoid that. Next one, low in sugar. Just because something is low in sugar or no added sugar doesn't mean it's automatically healthy. Often you'll find that something is low in sugar and it's 60% carbohydrates, but 60% processed carbohydrates, easily digested by your body, and stimulates insulin, nutrient poor, not something you want to be consuming. The next label is salt, low salt or no added salt. Again, can be a misleading label, because salt in itself is not problematic if your weight is controlled, if you don't have no other heart failure issues. Salt itself is not something you need to have to worry about too much. So therefore, foods that the label itself low in salt is again meaningless. I've seen crackers or biscuits marketed as low in salt. They're not a health food. They're high in processed carbohydrates, high in sugar. In itself, that label is meaningless. Often these labels are present on processed foods, not on natural foods. You don't see these kind of labels on broccoli or steak, for example. Okay, let's move on to the labels where there are things added. There are not as many of these, but you have to be wary of them. Added protein. So protein is good for you, obviously it's essential for you. You need your essential amino acids on a daily basis. But added protein doesn't mean anything. I've seen processed cereals with the label added protein. So it's to positively reinforce this idea that you should be eating this product because it has added protein, ignoring the fact that it's high in sugar, high in processed carbohydrates. poor in other nutrients, and probably the quality of protein isn't that good either. Another example is added omega-3s. I've seen this on fish fingers or processed fish based products. Omega-3 obviously is a good polyunsaturated fatty acid. It reduces inflammation, but the fact that it's added to food doesn't mean that that food is automatically healthy. So fish fingers, commonly given to children on an occasional basis, fine, but you don't want that to be a regular thing for your children or for yourself. And don't be falsely reassured by added omega-3 label. And finally, other label that gives you an idea of the quality, in quotation marks, things like organic or homemade. Obviously that's better than it not being organic, but again, potatoes that are organic are not as good as your non-organic, for example, beef, because potatoes high in starch, which is sugar in chains, and if you base your food around starchy foods, then all that's going to do is stimulate insulin, cause fat storage. It's a lost opportunity to eat more nutrient-rich foods like beef, for example. So don't be misled by labels like organic or homemade. The overall message from this video is to focus on the nutrients and don't be distracted by food labels.